on our screens right now is the picture of the three women who are at the top of the leadership of the judiciary right now. Chief Justice Martha Koome, Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, and of course the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, Anne Amadi. Let me just start with you, Mheshimiwa, your reaction to that beautiful picture of women walking outside the highest court in the land.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think personally that picture, speaks 1,000 words. And to me, I believe and I strongly believe that these women are there, not just because they are women, but because they merit and they qualify to be there. And this picture is very normal. We hardly see where the president is working with the deputy president, with the speakers of both houses of parliament. It doesn't make news. Exactly. So I think to me it's a picture that speaks 1,000 words. And it's a picture that brings a lot of encouragement to the women and the girls of this country. And it's also a picture that tells us that finally there's a lot of hope for women of this country.
Okay. Yep. Zahura, do you want to quickly?
Of course. I mean, this is a picture that will go down history lane. We are very excited about seeing such growth that is happening in the women leadership. And it's amazing that now it's conversations that we are having in different aspects of leadership and ensuring that we are not making it look more agenda item, but a business item, and ensuring that we have the right women represented in the right table. So, of course, this picture gives hope to some of the achievements that we are forecasted to see by the 2030 and see what would have delivered to ensure that we have a lot of equality in leadership as well.
Okay. Flora, I know you can't see this picture, but as I mentioned, it's a picture of the top leadership, the current top leadership of the judiciary. That is Chief Justice Martha Koome, Philomena Mwilu, and Anne Amadi, of course, who are, of course, the Chief Registrar. Just give us your brief response.
Well, one, I can see the photo, and it is actually quite, of course, it elicits a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
And we are proud of the steps that we are making in Kenya. As you know, in the corporate circle, women in leadership, I think, stood at about, 34% of companies didn't even have women in top leadership. This is in 2012. But now I know that number has increased, and I do know women on boards has actually increased to almost 21%, which is higher than even other countries within Africa. So definitely it is a step in the right direction, and it needs to become more the norm than the exception.
All right. And then let's just continue, of course, those pictures. As you can see, Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu right there, Chief Justice Martha Koome, and indeed Anne Amadi, the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. Let's play some more pictures of other women, of course, who are playing a very important role. And these are the women in Cabinet: Betty Minor, CS Industrialization, Amina Mohammed, the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, of course, Cicely Kariuki for Gender and Youth. And then we have Farida Karunei for lands. Let's get more pictures. Of course, Rachel Omamo for foreign affairs. And, oh God, I'm losing her name. She's CS for water. And, of course, the CS for defense in the country, Monica Juma. Let's get to see the women who are also helping us manage our resources. Right there was Nancy Gathungu. She's the Auditor General. That is the controller of budget. This is the chairperson of the Commission for Revenue Allocation. That is Dr. Jane Kiringai. If we can get to see some of those pictures, some more. Yes, and of course, that's Lynn Mingich. She is the chairperson of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. And this is Sheila Mbijiwe. She's the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Just more pictures, ladies, of women who are indeed, and as you can see, we have tried to cluster them: judiciary, women in cabinet, and of course, those ones who are helping us manage the resources. Once again, looking at those pictures, are we finally seeing the change that we wanted to see? I'll start with you, Mosh.
Well, looking at those pictures, to me, it tells a lot. And these pictures means that finally, though not very final, we are beginning to realize and we are beginning to harvest what other women has fought for so dearly. And Kiprop, There's no shortage of women who can be presidents and even other positions in this country. But the infrastructure that should allow them to be at the helm of leadership is what is missing. You know, women in this country are very well educated. They are very hardworking. But when I look at those pictures, it tells a lot that the gains of women, the gains that women who came before us had fought for, we are finally, you know, starting, getting to see a step at a time.
Zuhura?
Of course, it's one of the things that we are seeing, that there's been much progress, you know, made mainly driven by the constitutional framework, you know, that women have worked so hard to put in place. And as a result, we have had more women than ever in spaces of leadership. And of course, the decision making, ensuring that there's participation, and also breaking the barriers that have kept them back by just being there. And a great deal more needs to be done in the progress that has been made. So we are seeing what is happening around the world. We are not yet there. We are literally, you know, scratching the surface. We can see a lot of appointments across, from public to private sector. And of course, it just gives us hope that we are getting there. I mean, there's a lot more that has to be done, but we need it to be rallied across, and not only by women driving it, and even it looking like it's a women base, but having more and more men who are standing in and being able to take ownership of that, and being able to see what's being brought on the table for the growth of organizations.
Flora, and definitely this is not something we're just seeing in Kenya. We are seeing in our neighboring country, of course, the leadership of President Samia Suluhu Hassan. We are seeing in other countries, for instance, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, and how she has been able to steer New Zealand, especially at this very critical time of COVID-19, and also the election of Kamala Harris as the Vice President in the United States.
Yes, definitely. I think actually globally now they are saying senior roles are 25% of senior roles are now being held by women. So you can see we are definitely growing towards it. Of course, as you get into the political front, I think the numbers are quite small, but they are continuing to grow. I think what I want to say here is women are not necessarily looking for favors. What women are looking for is an enabling environment for them to be able to thrive. You know, these gender biases that we have, gender-based violence, things that are actually stopping women from being who they are. You know, you go into an organization, can't grow, go into politics, the women get harassed, like we've seen in this country. It's not very simple for a woman to say, I'm going to go for an elective post. And those are areas that we need to guard as now the women who are there, and support the rest who want to go for an elective post to make sure that they do. Because the narrative is thrown at them. And so the environment is what has not been enabling. We definitely are making huge steps. It is very, very encouraging what we've done. It is now becoming expected. The young girls are seeing great role models. And I believe also, especially for you people in media, storytelling is actually what is also going to change the game. When a young girl rural girl in the village sees the Martha Komes, sees the, all the women that were there, Kamala Harris becoming a vice president, Suluhu, who would have thought? Her narrative begins to change. She starts saying, listen, I'm a different person. I can achieve what I want to achieve. And this is where we really want to go, where we actually, it is a norm. And so for me, it's really dealing with the environment and the biases that are there that keep the women down.
Okay, and we will be, of course, getting into some of those challenges that still prevent more young women and girls into these positions. But you've just been appointed or elected, or at least ascended to become the chairperson of the Kenya Private Sector Association in Kenya. It's a very big lobby group, and you've just come from, of course, being chairperson of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Maybe this progress that we're seeing, of course, in governance, are we seeing it in the private sector?
Definitely. I think women chairs has grown from, I think, something like 3% to 11% already in the private sector. I think government could be leading, state-owned corporations could be leading in that area, because you remember they did their 30% and they're really growing towards it. So definitely we are getting there. It's a conversation that has become more the norm. But remember, there's a pipeline. So we need more women to come onto the boards so that more women can actually come onto the chairmanship.
Okay.
People seem to think that I just sort of jumped there. I was actually a board member of KAM, I think, for 7 years before I took on the helm.
And maybe Zuhura, because of your position with the 30% club, you would want to just quickly respond.
Of course, we are very excited that, we are seeing a lot of conversions that are on. And, I mean, just looking at one of the big wins that we had in February this year was being able to sign with the Nairobi Securities Exchange, where they are pushing, ensuring that a lot of the represented listed companies are actually, having 30% minimum representation in boards. We are saying 30% is not a cap. I mean, we have seen companies that are doing more than 50. Amazingly enough, we are seeing more and more women come into leadership. We are seeing more initiatives that companies are actually putting deliberately to be able to ensure that they're having that particular representation. We've also seen across, in the private sector, how many companies are now giving women, we're seeing women CEOs. Very happy. Congratulations again, Flora Mutai. I get this opportunity to congratulate you on TV. Of course, very excited. The first, first chair of KEPSA. I mean, that goes again down memory lane. And of course, it just gives us hope. And we are really, championing and working with the Lord, like with 30%. It's owned by chairmen and CEOs who take accountability to ensure the organizations have that representation in the boards.
All right, and maybe, Mwesh, before we start looking at the elective side of it, how important is it that we are seeing this progress across board? Because sometimes we tend to shine the light only on the political part of it.
Well, I think it's very important that we see this thing across board, because to me it means that a lot of women out there, like one of us just mentioned here, women are not looking for favors. They're actually going for what they deserve. They are going for what they merit. And to me, both elective and non-elective posts for women means a lot in this country.
Okay.
And when we have these women who are in leadership but not in elective positions, again, it gives a lot of hopes to women who want to get into elective positions, because one way or another we connect and we intertwine. So it's actually very important, and congratulations to my very good friend Flora and Mother Kome, because as women of this country, we can sign a relief.
Okay. And of course, we wanted to be part of this conversation. Earlier on, we asked you on our question of the day, what do you think needs to be done to increase, of course, the number of women in leadership position? You can tweet us at NTV Kenya and at Victor Kiprop _. Use the hashtag #NewNormal so that we can see the tweets that you send us and sample part of it. You can also follow the conversation at Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, where we are currently streaming live. If you're not on social media, you have a mobile phone and you can call in and be part of this conversation. But for now, Beatrice Elachi, she's the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service and Gender, and she's ready to join us. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Morning, everyone.
All right.
I can see Mheshimiwa, and congratulations, Flora, as I join in.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you so much.
Okay, because you've just joined us late, we want to give you an opportunity to react to part of what we have been talking about, which is essentially to recognize the progress that we have seen in the strengthened participation of women in leadership, especially the latest one, which is in the judiciary, the appointment of Chief Justice Martha Koome as the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya. She now joins two other women as the Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu and Anne Amadi, who is the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary.
Thank you so much. First of all, I mean, just to congratulate also our CJ, Martha Koome. And I think one of the things we learned from that journey of the CJ is from where she started her journey. A journey where she started within the women's movement, coming up into an advocate, and now being now president of the judiciary. For us, I think as women is first of all to just thank God, because the journey we have walked, I think many of the challenges women have faced to move in the different levels of government, of corporate, and even in civil society, everyone has a story to tell. And you find that the bar has been set so high. I mean, when I look at my CS alone, the journey she has walked her now to be the CS in public service. You will realize she was a director. But when you look at the achievements and marks she's left behind, when you look at Monica Juma, what she's left for her to arrive and become the CS of Defense, Amina, all of them have walked a journey, and a journey of moving one step to another. When you look at Flora, where she has come, then come into CAM, now she's in South. I think every woman, Zura will tell you, has a story. They have not just come and sat on a seat. They are not lucky as men, I would say that. Women have to endure a journey that is sometimes very painful and very lonely.
Yeah.
This journey. One of the things I look at Sarah now today, and I'm imagining that come 2022, we must ensure she safeguards her seat. And I think as the ministry, our agenda is to first of all ensure we safeguard all the women, especially those who are in the constituency seats, so that we are able to safeguard and ensure we have those women coming back. And then look within the strategy and ask ourselves, how can we now maneuver? And you realize already the men have started the politics. The succession stories have started. But you realize women are a bit aback, looking on what strategy we be able to now engage.
Okay.
But for me, what I want to tell the political women is those who are in any position to convince one of those presidential candidates, you must convince that either a woman must be a deputy president.
Okay.
That way, then they will be being honest to us that they are carrying us on board and they are willing to work as women and they can trust our leadership.
Okay.
But if we are just going to play the game and they will use us again, then I think that elections of 2022, we must rethink.
All right.
And I am praying that women will have the courage to stand firm this time round. That we have seen Tanzania, we have seen the US, and we have that courage to stand and just tell our colleagues, you must have a deputy president.
All right. Thank you. And I think, ladies, the point that she makes is the issue of not just participation, but meaningful participation, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And let me just come back to you, Honorable Korere, because she's touched on the issue of now you and your seat in 2022, which matters to me because part of that progress that we've just recognized in the program, as you can see, is on the appointive side. On the elective side, 2 governors out of the 47 of them are just female. So it brings the question of whether we are seeing significant progress on the elective side.
Well, thank you. On the elective side, we still have a lot to do. We have a long way to go. But not just on the elective side, I think even on the appointive sides, it's still the same story. But on the elective side, it's quite complex, as you say. We only have 2 governors out of 47. We have 3 senators out of 47 elected ones. We have 23 single-member constituency MPs out of 293. So from where I sit, I think we still have a long way to go. And that is why I said earlier, in elective positions, it's actually the infrastructure to have women there. As Elashi puts it, you know, men have already started campaigning, which to me sometimes as a person, I look at it as a bit immoral, that we are campaigning in a country where people are dying of hunger. We are campaigning in a country where the pandemic is killing so many Kenyans. So to me, I really don't think campaigning would have been a priority, but people are already doing it. And women must come on board so that we participate actively in deciding what happened next. For me now, my priority is actually to make sure that I retain my seat, because I know there are a lot of projects I've started in Laikipia North which has never been touched on since 1963. And you know the infrastructure in politics, you know the political parties giving women an opportunity to vie is another thing. You know, the gender-based violence during elections is another thing.
And I'm sure I'll want to come back to those challenges shortly. But let me just bring in Honorable Elachi briefly. Honorable Elachi, briefly, you were part of that campaign, I think it was called Nimama in 2017, which is essentially to just try and encourage more women to go for these positions, bravely go into the fight, and of course encourage the electorate to give women a chance to lead. And just looking at the results of the 2017 elections and the women who were elected then, are you satisfied perhaps that the agenda that you had during that campaign worked?
I would say, I would not say satisfied.
Yeah.
But I'll say, looking at how it was so competitive, you really give thumbs up to the women who were elected, especially the 3 senators and the constituency women.
Yeah.
But then we need to relook at now the whole strategy, because we had many women coming out wanting to really buy. But I know the biggest challenge of every woman to tell you is how expensive our campaigns are. And I think the best we can now start doing and looking at is to ensure, first of all, is there a way the financing law can now work? That you can reduce this madness of men who believe you have to campaign very expensively in the cost of leaving very good leaders out, especially young people who cannot even afford, but then see how we move. And that is why we must really focus, first of all, on ensuring, are we able even to just achieve the 3 women that left IEBC? That within this selection that is coming, we see women being appointed now to become commissioners within IEBC first, because that's how the process starts. When you now have a full bench of commissioners of IEBC who comply to the 1/3 gender rule, then we are able to say now going forward, political parties are able also to adhere to that.
Okay.
And after political parties, when you receive nominations from political parties and they are able to stand firm and to say that we need to see a list of either 2/3 of gender rule being complied of, then you will know going forward, you will have more women, because the strong political parties in the different regions, knowing very well how political and how tribal they become, if they are able to bring in women, you will be able to find women being elected into parliament.
Okay.
But one of the things we have to be very careful about is, you see, when you start seeing a country where you have small parties function, then women will get lost in that. Because the women will find themselves now, you have to survive. And it is very expensive when you're surviving in a small party.
Okay.
So that is one thing we have to ensure as we move with the strategy. We look at how are we looking at political parties. And then the other thing is, women must be very strategic in the coalitions that are going to come in. Because that's another place where you can get lost, because it's a bargain, or you're bringing this on the table. And that's where women are told, oh, who are you? Maybe I'm married, like my mother a Kikuyu, my father a Luya. At that time, I will not become a Luya. You become now another tribe. And that's how women find themselves into a situation where good leadership is left, and now you find yourself having very strong tribal politicians who believe within their tribe.
All right. And maybe before I go back to Flora and Zuhura Mheshimiwa, there's something that I want you to highlight, because you sit in the 12th Parliament. You have been there. And one of the affirmative actions that should have corrected some of these things on the elective sides is the provision in Article 26, that one of not more than 2/3 of the elected members being from one gender. And I believe that there should be a legislation that could now effect this. But this legislation has not sailed in Parliament 4 times, a record 4 times.
Kiprop, that tells you how Kenyans are not ready or let me say Kenyans, because those people who are in parliament represent Kenyans, they're elected. And as I mentioned earlier, out of the 290, there are 23 women, plus the 47, in women rep seats. And of course, that is a male-dominated parliament. So a record 4 times, we could not have this legislation sail through, because clearly it shows you that the members who sit in that parliament, who are mainly men, are not ready to enact that legislation. But Kiprop, look at it this way. Not just the elective positions. You know, the appointive positions does not need any legislation. But are we there? Are we there? We are not yet there. That tells you even the appointing authorities have not, walked the talk of making sure that there are not less than a third members, women, in every appointive position. Yeah.
Zuhura, do you want to just respond quickly?
Yes, of course. We've seen, and this is more in leadership and asking more women to come out into, and wearing my National Women's Steering Committee, we have been engaging and ensuring that we are seeing a lot of women across the 47 counties that are interested in leadership. We are encouraging that they can stand out. More we see bigger challenges about just the political will. And as we've seen, Honorable Elachi has talked about, the cost, it turns off some of the women, and we're encouraging. In fact, it's been key that we then would have seen, or to see the representation for the commissioners at the IEBC, so that we are able to continue to show how we are having still leadership from the counties. I mean, of course, it never gave me better excitement when we've had the first 3 female governors. And to me, that was a beginning that we can actually ask more and more women to sit in those positions. And we are hoping that next year we'll be able to have more and more women take up the leadership positions. But of course, we're seeing over the 10 years and post the promulgation of the Constitution 2010, the 2/3 gender principle has actually remained in abeyance. But that doesn't stop us to be able to ensure that we're encouraging leadership across. And that's why you can see all through, we are trying to see how will that be, because then we need them in both the private and the public sector to be able to be on those decision-making tables.
Okay, Flora, I'll allow you to respond from just where you sit, because clearly these happenings on the political side have, an impact on what happens on the rest or across the board.
Well, definitely it's important, because, our laws are made in that parliament. So the more women we are able to have there, the better off we will be, and women's matters will be taken into consideration. What I'm thinking about at this time, I know CAS Elachi spoke about financing.
Yeah.
Definitely for women to take an elective post, the money is quite a bit. And I want to remind us, like in the UK, they have this, in the US, there's the one they call Emily's List.
Yeah.
And this was somebody who have the funding. So we started a foundation called Emily's List, where they are able to pull together and then support the women who want to go into elective posts. Because it's not all of us who want to go there, but definitely if you're asked to contribute and we sort of pull together. So maybe that is also something that we could also learn to do, is pull ourselves together and actually start fronting representative elective people to a position.
Okay, I think we're losing Flora there, but she raised a very valid point on the issue of financing and how campaign financing and how it determines who really ends at the end of the day takes up the seat.
Well, campaign financing is actually one of the biggest things in having women elected. And at the end of the day, political parties are vehicles through which we all get elected to that parliament. Honorable Beatrice Elachi mentioned that, for women to be elected, the financing part of it, and also the political parties. If you see these small tribal political parties, that is very worrying, because that tells you we might get, we must lose a lot of women, in between. And 2017 was a record time when a lot of women were elected into parliament through political parties that has got national outlook. You know, NASA have got a national outlook, and so was Jubilee. But you know, for these very small political parties that you can actually link it with this tribe and that tribe does not work favors for women. And you know, political parties, I must say, must stop using women as flower girls and dancers, and you know, they must allow them to take active roles in political parties so that in the long run they get elected. Look at financing, for example. You know, when it comes to ownership of property, not a lot of women can today sell a shamba
to fund your campaign.
To fund your campaigns. But you know, if your husband is the one who is going to fight for a position, he can actually sell anything he wants to sell and finance their campaigns.
And we'll actually come back to part of the problem with the stereotypes there, because you're trying to sell the family, you know, asset to fund campaigns. When it's the husband or the man in the house, we all agree very easily. I mean, we want to get this.
Right.
When it's the wife, it's like, hey, unataka kupoteza mali yetu, you know. And let me just get, you know, Honorable Beatrice Elachi to respond to that. And even as she does that, I'll read a statistic from the United Nations here. And it says women serve as heads of state or government in only 22 countries. And 119 countries have never had a woman leader. And then only 4 countries have 50% or more women in parliament in single lower houses. Rwanda with 61%, Cuba with 53%, and Bolivia with 53% as well. Honorable Elachi.
Yes, and sometimes I always say, you know, when you look at Rwanda, you can use it as a gauge, but you can also tell yourself the challenges they've gone through. Maybe that is what has given women the opportunity on how they are. And they've managed to be able to prove that they can move a country to another level. So today, where Rwanda is, I think it's they give credit to what the women have done. Coming to Kenya, I think also many of the positions that women have taken in Kenya, we have really done our best, knowing very well how if you do one mistake, people will never remember the good that you have done. But then knowing very well that before the former Chief Justice left, Parliament was supposed to be dissolved because of the same issue. And now that we wanted to try and resolve it through the BBI, and again we find ourselves in this situation, then it calls upon us women. And I know as the ministry, we've been working with different institutions like ENA, ECO Africa, CRU, FIDA, and we are trying to ask ourselves, how do we trust, how do we work to ensure that women can be able in 2022, some finances somewhere, be supported. If I put 100,000, somebody can give me at least another 100, double it, for this woman to move, especially during the nominations. And more importantly, when you're doing your campaigns, but when you come now to the issues of agents, because that is where we now get a lot of challenges. And you find one night you don't have even agents to be in any of your polling stations. Reasons, you are supposed to give them money, but you didn't have them. So we have to think. I think the ministry has started trainings. We must relook at the issue of county assemblies. Kenyans are very disappointed with us. We have nominated them. This is the second time, which it comes to 10 years.
Yeah.
Kenyans want to see now more MCAs, women being elected, not nominated.
Okay.
And therefore, it is our duty to ensure at least 400 women can be elected as MCAs.
Honorable Elachi, allow me to interrupt you there, because you said Kenyans want to see more women elected, not nominated.
Yes.
But these are the Kenyans who are voting.
Yes.
Why aren't they voting for the women? And if you look at the composition of our population, by the way, I believe 51% or slightly 50%. I mean, the population of women and girls is more than that of men. Is the problem the electorate?
Well, I'll say 2 things. The problem is not the electorate. The problem is the barriers that we face. And as I say, for example, I am a Luya, my mother is a Kikuyu. You can be a good leader, but by the time I go on the ground and I say I'm a Luya and I'm speaking some Kikuyu, I'm told, no. That one is not a Luya. So somebody uses that to remove you from leadership just because of your tribe. But one of the things I'm appreciating about Kenyans also is that when they've seen Mama Suluhu, and her coming here in this country was a turning point of how we look at women in leadership, and especially higher leadership. And also, when we are looking at our CJ, I think it now gives that people are starting to understand, yes, women can in this leadership, and they can lead.
Okay.
And lead in a manner where you transform the country.
Okay.
Not just sitting on the telling me, I have been in parliament for 15 years. That is what the men will tell you. But now on the ground, you are disappointed.
I think
Why even you're trying to tell me you've been in parliament for 15 years. But a woman, one term, she transforms the constituency.
All right. And I think Honorable Korere wants to respond to that briefly.
Well, I want to respond to that. Beatrice has mentioned that we want to see more elected MCAs, more elected members of parliament. But I must also say, the electorate don't have a problem. The problem is the barriers. And you know, for women, once you jump one hurdle, another one is placed. So the goalposts keep on changing. Because when you vie as a woman, your marital status become an issue. And we've never had people having issues with the marital status of men. Where are you married to, with which clan, to which tribe, you know, to who, you know? And secondly, for women to get elected to these positions, you really need to give them a platform. And I can give you an example of what I mean. In National Assembly, for example, we have Cecily Mbarire, who even tried to vie for governorship. I'm sure she's going back for governorship again. But Cecily Mbarire first got elected after getting a nomination. The same case to myself, the same case to Naisula Lesuda, the same case to Millie Odhiambo. And if you look at Homa Bay, for example, after the election of Millie Odhiambo, there came 2 more women. So if in Homa Bay alone, we have 3 women elected. That tells you from Millie Odhiambo, the electorate of Homa Bay could actually look up to Millie and see, wow, I think it's a high time we have women elected as members of parliament. If you come to Moranga, for example, we had the first women elected, the Honorable Alice Wahome. And in the subsequent election, there are 2 more women came on board. So you know, to me, it means that once you give women a platform, an opportunity to interact, to create those networks, to even get access to resources. Because I'm sure once you are nominated as an MCA, or a member of parliament, when you go back for election, of course, you will not go back the way you were if you were not given that.
All right.
So to me, I think the problem is not the electorate. The problem is the stereotypes, the barriers, the finances, you know, so many things, and the goalposts that keep changing.
And definitely we want to look at that very same issue of the challenges and barriers that stop or prevent more women from going into these positions. That's what we will do after this break. But before that break, let's just give you a quick the quick feedback that you've been sending us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter and Instagram. If that's ready, remember, we asked you in our question, what needs to be done to increase the number of women in leadership? Yes, let's get to see what some of you guys are saying on social media. Josephine says, empower more women from institutions since they are the future leaders of this country. This can be done through the installation of more training programs that are also accessible to provide privileges to those in primary schools, high schools, universities, and colleges. Thank you, Josephine. Very comprehensive. Abel says, our attitude and perceptions of women in leadership needs to change. Elective posts were created by the Constitution, but still the matter of women inclusivity in the arms of government always arises, especially in the legislature. Thank you, Abel. Very comprehensive feedback that we are receiving this morning. Mark says, we need to see that paradigm shift from the 3 arms of government. Kenyans should embrace women in leadership. Indeed, Mark, Kenyans should embrace women in leadership. We have to take a quick break, but When we come back, we talk about the challenges facing women in leadership, the barriers that prevent other women from not ascending or at least, climbing the ladder to top positions of leadership, and what can be done. Don't go anywhere, because Zuhura, Honorable Korere, Honorable Elachi, as well as Frola Mutai are staying with me.
City's premier neighborhood, offering a 1.25 acre fully serviced plot in a controlled development. The plots overlook a beautiful dam with natural green spaces. Kijani Ridge is a walking distance from Rover Pioneer and Crawford International Schools. Families are already moved in and more homes are under construction. Contact us for daily site visits and own your dream home with us.
Every Saturday from 11 to 1 p.m. Keep it locked, keep it loyal. Be watching Team Republic.
You make me fall in love.
Thank you for staying with us on Your World this morning. We are talking about women and leadership, the participation of women in leadership, the challenges that they face, and what needs to be done, of course, to strengthen the participation of women in leadership in Kenya. In studio with us this morning, Sarah Korere, she's the Member of Parliament for Laikipia North. Zuhura Ogada Odhiambo, she's the new CEO for New Revenue Solutions Africa, as well as Flora Mutai, she's the chairperson of KEPSA, and of course founder and CEO of MASH International Limited. Also joining us this morning is Honorable Beatrice Elachi virtually. Ladies, let's just pick up from where we left from that break. And that is the issue of the challenges that face these women, because sometimes you fight the war. Those women, as Honorable Elachi said, have a story to tell before they get to where they are, and all of you have. But when you get there, there are still challenges that face you, and they are the barriers that prevent others from even coming up. Let's start here. The issue of discrimination, the issue of expectations. I'll start with you, Zuhura. Do you think sometimes women are held to a higher standard, higher expectations than their male colleagues?
Of course, I would say that, they always say that a woman has to work 3 times harder to even be recognized on what they have done. I mean, of course, high expectations are not a challenge. We have seen how we are able to break the barriers. I even say there's no longer the glass ceiling. We've discovered how to go around that.
Yeah.
But anyone who has privilege of leadership, of course, representation on any leadership position has a burden of high expectations. So we are not really running away from that. And the women must not seek to have expectation lowered in the name of them being female. But we have seen there, however, is a different yardstick where women are measured by, the yardstick is much harsher on the women. And they need to know that they understand that they are under the microscopic lens. And everybody else, I mean, try today, whether it's in public or private, anything that would go wrong, which is anomaly to any gender, when a woman does it, the outcry is big. There are so many things, and even nobody stands out to be able to stand with them and be able to say, I agree with Zuhura in whatever she had made this particular decision. No, everybody, you tend to just die alone. And that's because we are measured heavily. But we are saying that we can be able to, still achieve those higher expectations. But then as we look at the different elements, I think it's also in how we've been brought up. I mean, you would look at when would leadership and people in leadership stop looking at you as a woman, but as the leader. So the mistake a man would make is the same mistake I can make. And how they'll go about it with him is how they would go about it with me. So that has also seen a lot of women shy from taking leadership positions. Some people, even the political positions, as I've told you, under the National Women's Steering Committee, we've been doing a lot of training and capacity building across, trying to see how can we be able to have more women in leadership. But then people fear. They say, I don't want to be on TV, I don't want to be in the newspaper, this will be written, my marriage, my life. So you can see that's because when one woman somewhere made a normal mistake in leadership, it was reported as if she murdered somebody. So you can imagine how then
the same murder that a man could easily get away with.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
100% correct.
Yes, I would want to say part of the challenges, as my colleague have mentioned, is actually the expectations. And as women, we are not running away from those expectations. We are actually up to them. In fact, a lot of us in leadership want to close that gap, that has not been able to be closed by, our male counterparts who have been there before us. But again, when you look at the word man is to error, it's funny because it literally translates
and
in
like
this case,
noted that,
into man is to error, but women, I don't know where that left women to. That is why today, if a woman does something, and especially in leadership, a lot of us have suffered many times when one woman does something, it's something that should even be private, personal. There is this treatment like, okay, so wanawake muko hivi mukichaguliwa, because of a mistake of one woman, which sometimes should even be her personal life. But men has made a lot of mistakes. People have even murdered and are still sitting in high offices. And we've not been treated to that hulalab of, kwa hivyo wanaume ni wauaji, ama kwa hivyo wanaume ni wezi. So to me, when you break the glass ceiling, I think they will even place a metallic ceiling somewhere. But to me, I think these things are shifting. If you look at the pastoral community, for example, it's a traditional, very patriarchal society. But today, as I talk, we have 4 elected women, single member constituency, not women reps, among the Ma community. And to me, that is, it gives me a lot of hope that finally, this kind of patriarchalism and stereotypes are surely but slowly shifting.
Okay. Flora, do we also see this in the private sector?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, there are a lot of challenges that are there. And let me begin by even the first one. For me, I look at it in 4 ways. There's the structural barriers. And in fact, the big boys club are actually what we say keeps also women out. Today, if somebody wants to put to choose a board member, where do they go? They go to people they know. They go to their social clubs. They go to their, to their business clubs. And of course, the women are not there. So there are those structural barriers that we need to also start breaking, where women are, I know a club I go to, they actually literally have a men's room only, women can't enter. So those are areas where we really need to also just be seen, because those networks are important. And I always tell women, what you need to do is just build he for she's. There are a lot of men out there who really support, and make the will known, and they will support you. Institutional mindsets. There's generally the gender bias and stereotyping within the organization. I think I talked about this earlier, where people just generally say a woman can't do that. And then there's the individual mindset. This is the mindset that really stops the woman herself. So I believe I can't. I go into a C-suite, I'm happy, I'm comfortable, and I believe I don't want to go for the top job. I'm a vice president, I believe I can't get presidency. So there's that too. And then there's lifestyle choices. I know women who have chosen to leave corporate to go and bring up their children. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when I do come back, kindly allow me the gap in my CV to say, hey, here I was bringing up my children and I'm back. Perhaps try and fast track me, because women are very good leaders. So basically for me, those are the barriers and challenges that I see. Some self-inflicted, but again, why? Because of cultural norms. A woman is to be seen and not heard. A woman doesn't do that. When you state your point as a woman, they say, "Uyo ni kichwa ngumu." So those are the things that we really need to get out of our society and rally together. We want equality.
Honorable Elachi, part of that stereotype sometimes is the issue where we think that women are too delicate to lead, that we might need someone who has a iron fist.
Yes. But when a man is iron-fisted, we don't even comment. So for me, it's really about actually equal. Because they're the right opportunity and we'll get there. Yes.
Yes, Honorable Elachi, just proceed, yes.
That sometimes when now you are firm, now they say you are kichwang. They say, oh, that is a woman who is not supposed even to be in society. Now you become again one of those who are being told cannot even lead. And I know when we look at Martha Karua, her journey, how she started, many people will tell me that Martha indeed has a firm stand. What she believes in, what she says is no, is no. So when people look at her, they will start saying, oh, Martha Karua is so, which is not true. It is the challenge that women face. The first barrier is that when you're in a position and you decide now to be firm and to say, I'm changing this institution for the betterment, you become now a barrier to the men. And therefore, they will now start looking for the language that they will use upon you. That is one thing that has made many women fear political position. When you look at Sarah today, you congratulate her for a man walking into an office and deciding to just slap her. And I think the firmness she had at that time pushed Sarah to where she is today. And breaking that barrier that in Laikipia North, you can have a woman who can lead. And when you go there, you will see the difference of leadership. Same to Naisula, same all of us. I think when you look at Nairobi County, now let me just use my example. People used to wonder, Elachi, why are you sleeping in an office? And I'll tell you, to date, the men have not changed. They are the same. Men will come in and will want to whip you off and decide you can even be frog matched. But the time they find you, you are firm. Now people wonder, oh, that's a mad woman.
And if I can interrupt you there, Honorable Elachi, and bring in Zuhura, because there's the bit about, once you start becoming firm, as she says, they feel like you're becoming less of a mother, less of a wife, and the feeling is you perhaps sometimes need to sort of get rid of your femininity to be in power.
Kiprop, I doubt.
Okay, just respond, Zuhura.
Yes, of course, and that's one thing. I mean, that you know, and it's all because from the societal expectations that have been there, that women were supposed to just take up particular positions, not be hard, like Flora had actually mentioned, and be able to just be quiet. But it's we are not the same. I mean, so there are those who are soft-spoken, there are those who, you know, speak out very well. But the moment you start that and take particular positions, how you are judged, it's amazing. Even if you made one mistake that a woman has made, which a normal mother would make, you'd be like, and now it's because she's this and that, you know, and that brings in a lot of judgment. It's like you come in and everybody now belongs into your family, belongs in anything you do, and you're harshly judged across the society, even in church. You can be judged because you are, you know, in this higher position. So of course, this is more in the society, and we're trying to say, if you looked through, close to every family has got a woman. Every person has a mother. And we've seen leadership started way far from motherhood. You can imagine how many women have actually been able to steer families in the right direction. How many women every day are already mothers and leaders in their own space. But why are we thinking that that same notion cannot be taken into the boardroom, into any political assignment? So we need to start seeing that we were naturally born leaders, and we are ready. And do not judge us when we are firm and start putting in your own stories.
Yes, you actually come from a pastoralist community like I do, and because she has introduced the issue of social, cultural, you know, impact, with the impact it has on these issues, and when you are there, it sometimes starts even right inside your family. Your uncle is like, you want to run for member of parliament? My God. Msichana kichwa si uolewe tu na uende nyumbani.
Yeah, actually, you know, in most pastoral communities, there is this notion of if a girl becomes very successful, then it is bad omen to the male counterparts of the...
Really?
Yes, of the family. So, you know, it's very sad when you are going into politics and you know you are not having the support of a lot of your male family members, because they now think if you climb to the helm, they might probably die, or they might become poor forever, or something like that. But again, look at it like this, Kiprop. You know, some of the barriers you are talking about are deliberately designed to keep women off. You know, like sometimes verbal insults, you know, physical violence. Like,
and in the campaigns, it can be really violent.
It can be really violent. And you know, a lot of women will keep off and say, you know, I don't want to be called, you know, they call you prostitute. And your children are hearing, they are watching news, they are reading papers. But you know, sometimes I tell women they should come out of the comfort zone. They should be ready to roll up their sleeves. Because I normally tell women, it's not men who insult you, it is your opponents. And when they are not insulting you for sure, they have not felt your weight.
You don't matter.
You don't matter.
Okay, I have a quick call. I think it should be Dennis from Nakuru. Good morning, Dennis. Do you have a comment or a question for today's conversation?
Morning.
Morning, Dennis.
How are you? This is a topic that is at the focal point of my consideration all the time.
Okay.
Women have a right. And when I talk about human equality, I'm talking about gender equality. Women have the right. I'll give you an example, quick one, 30 seconds if you allow.
Yeah.
My mother became a leader by default. It was out of love for my father, and then also in terms of patriarchal system. She was the first mother. Then a second mother came, polygamy. A third mother came. Eventually, our father left every responsibility to our mothers. So every mother would take care of their own kids. For instance, my house, where my mother was, we were 9 boys. The other one had about six the girls had 3 boys. Yeah, the last one had two children, a boy and a girl. But my mother, because of that, the father abandoned us, went away, I don't know, somewhere in Sudan. And by the time I was coming back, the families had almost disintegrated.
Okay.
But my mother, because she was the first woman, had to make sure the family remained compact. we succeeded so much that the first family, which I call the first one, my mother's, all of us succeeded beyond expectation because my mother took the mantle and took it very, very strongly.
Okay.
So the women can manage it if we give them support. If we don't give them this masculine behavior where we just think of women are just women because they're women. Women can manage it very effectively with good systems, with good institutional support, with good finances, exceptional training.
Yeah.
They will manage it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis from Nakuru. And I think it raises a very valid points that we were discussing, Zuhura, briefly.
Yeah, of course, what we need is the support. And it's one thing that we've seen a lot of women make it. Even the women that, we have that are represented on different boards.
Yeah.
You literally have to look at how you supported around that. What is your support system? Who are your accountability partners? People who can ask you, hard questions about what you want to deliver down. Who are those who can call your name while you're not in that particular room? I mean, and that's because of the work that you're doing. And you can see how we are able to, bring this up and be able to show, because we've seen it work. We've seen it work, and even as you've seen a lot of initiatives that are being done, even with Women's on Board network and even the 30% network, trying to bring up those women who will take leadership. But at the same time, you're showing them that we are ready to walk with you, and we will walk with you and be able to take you through. Because as Flora had said, the boys have the boys club.
Yeah.
So when they go through challenges, they still meet as boys and support each other. Yeah. And so hence the reason why, if the woman is given that particular support, you totally see them thrive.
Briefly?
Yes. I think here is a situation whereby we should create a partnership of men and women for purposes of enhanced development.
Yeah.
And when we are suffering the consequences of, for example, bad leadership, it affects both women and men equally.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I don't know why we should really treat, women leadership like it's a foreign thing that is an idea from another planet.
Yeah.
To me, it is an alternative leadership. It's just leadership like any other leadership. And like they mentioned, the big boys club, you can also have the big girls club. But at the end of the day, the clubs must have some linking point, because at the end of the day, you need those men who will stand up with you and say, yes, we know so-and-so, she's a good leader, we can hold her accountable, we can support her.
Yeah.
So it is not like we want to create a situation whereby we have women versus men. No, we want to create a situation whereby we know we are equal partners, just like we are at home.
Okay.
And Kiprop, I want to mention something very specific here. As women, we are mothers. Of course, men are fathers. And today, if I walk into the campaign trail, very pregnant, like I did in 2013, you'll have these questions of people asking you, sasa, unaenda kuzaa ama unaenda bunge? And on the same breath, some men are campaigning and they have left their wives pregnant with their babies. And nobody's asking them whether wanaenda kuzaa. So I think it's about creating an enabling environment for women, whether you are pregnant, whether you are lactating, in whichever form you are, you should be able not to choose between your family and your work, but they should create an infrastructure where you are able to, handle both simultaneously.
And before I go to Flora to give us her perspective, especially sitting in both, let me just ask Honorable Elache to give us, her experience, because I think she went into the polls in 2017 for the Dagoretti, if not North, South seat. And this is where these all things are. The campaigns are violent. They happen at night. You have other responsibilities at home. Honorable Elache, your perspective.
Yes. First of all, I just want to appreciate what Flora said.
Yeah.
That men have clubs that they are able to go in at night and sit and agree and strategize. And by the way, men can gang up together even when they are enemies, gang up on fighting one woman who is vying with them. Now, for me in Dagoretti North, I would say this. Number one, the men decided it is, you either use the youth every time to have chaos, which I did my best to really try. And I had to now change strategy, not to be doing huge rallies, but to do small meetings where now you are able to contain the conflicts that they are bringing. When it came now to the day of the elections, I think that was the most interesting part, which it's a strategy I know I have to tell women, that you must follow the process of IBC to the latter. Do not leave even one vacuum. Because the moment you just decide you're ignorant in what is happening with the clerks, what is happening with the presiding officers that are coming in, that is the moment you're going to face the worst challenge. I think that is what I faced.
Okay.
And I would thank Dagoretti North, because by the time I'm getting 36,000, and even my Mheshimiwa now calling Papa to come in at 4 p.m. so that they are able to announce it, it means we had really pushed. And if we had the courage to face the young men who had come in, it becomes a different game board. But you see, we appreciated and we said, let's leave. And I think that is where our leadership of women and men is so different.
Okay.
Women prefer peace. And we'll say, if we have reached at this point, I don't think we want anyone to fight to shed blood.
I would rather step
down. But men will die for it to the end. They would rather even not have the announcement and find themselves in court.
Okay.
That is where now women, we have the difference.
Okay.
But one thing I just want to say, as we go into 2020, I know we need to have clear strategies. That for the first time, women must ask themselves, how many votes do you need to win this seat? Not how vast your constituency is. How many votes? And you look at your polling stations and you start having a strategy to call the numbers, and slowly by slowly, so that people can know, yes, you are vying, you are there on the ground, these are my numbers. If I get beyond, but I should not get less on the numbers I have decided, this is what I need.
Okay,
it's a strategy to take.
Okay. And let me just take this call. I believe Evans from Mombasa. Evans, good morning. Do you have a question or a comment for our conversation today?
Thank you very much. I'm Evans Mombasa from Mombasa. I want to echo the speaker, the former speaker of Nairobi, Madam Victor Kiprop, who is the current CA for Public Service and Gender. I want to say this about our mothers. We must agree that the backbone of any nation stands with our parents, the way you were brought up. It is them who have made us to reach where we are nowadays. I want to say that if you look at Germany, for example, you will see that in terms of corruption is at 7% because of the leadership of our women. Our women, they fear, they cannot even steal. But men, they steal openly. If we give leadership to our mothers, to run this country, and I pray that in 2022, any election that which is coming, let us elect our mothers. You will find that there will be zero corruption.
Yeah.
Women they will not steal. But when we elect male chauvinists who believe that they are the people who control and everything,
okay,
we will go nowhere.
Thank you, Evans. All right, let me just take George from Siaya very quickly. George, good morning. Do you have... I think we're losing George. Yes. And let me just go to Flora at this point. Flora, two things. Let me just start with this one, what the caller has mentioned, because indeed in some countries there has demonstrable evidence that the leadership of women, especially even in boards, including women in your top leadership in boards, has some demonstrable and tangible advantage and benefits to the company.
Yes, definitely. Actually, there is empirical evidence that shows that, the more gender parity you have, the better your business does. What happens is you basically look at views and ideas from very different quarters. Women think I keep saying women think with the heart and with the head. Mm-hmm. Men perhaps think more with the head. So you have more divergent views on the table and you're able to actually bring them out. Secondly, women are caregivers, they are nurturers. So they will also look at, let's say, culture of the company. They will look at things that men don't necessarily feel are going to happen. And remember, they say culture can have strategy for lunch. So if you have one person not looking at one area, you're not going to succeed in another. So there is empirical evidence, incidentally, even in politics, that the better the gender parity, the better the success, because of the debate and the angles and the characteristics that women bring to the table.
Okay. And briefly, let me just check if George from CI is back with us. George?
Yes, good morning.
Morning, George. You have a question or a comment?
I have both. Now, when we talk about power, it's diverse. We have power in the house, in the office, and these women, I only have one problem with them. When it comes to office work, they do it perfectly well. Mm-hmm. And my question is, why do they need that power?
Okay.
Why do they need the power? Yeah? And the reason why men need power or need office work is because they have responsibilities. Can these women take those responsibilities? That is the question. Can they really take the responsibilities that we do take every day when it comes to the house and also the office? Because when they do the office work, they do it perfectly well, and some of them, it's like they want to outshine men. And it's not all about competition.
All right. Thank you, George. I'm struggling to hear you, and I think it sort of demonstrates part of the issues that we have, and that's why we were insisting on bringing men on the board in this discussion.
Yeah, I think it would have been very important if we had men on board, because I can clearly hear George's sentiments. You know, when he's talking of power and responsibility, I'm just asking myself, what kind of responsibilities is George talking about? I mean, what kind of responsibilities that are attached to power that men are taking up that women are not taking up, for example? You know, look at Rwanda. You know, after the genocide, up to date, Rwanda has got one of the highest percentages of women leadership in politics. And you know, that has not deterred Rwanda. Actually, Rwanda is a role model of what leadership is in Africa. So I really don't know what these responsibilities that women are not able to take up that George is talking about. When it comes to family, home, and office, I think just the same way that women are able to steer their families on is the same way they are able to steer the companies. And as Flora mentioned, when you have more women in leadership, for example, you know, you enact policies and laws, you know, in offices, in parliament, which are supposed to affect, you know, 52% of the population that is not represented on that table. You know, very simple things like, for example, the daycare centers for children. How do you expect 92% of men in parliament to even think about the gap? You know, how do you expect them to think about it like that? So I think there is no responsibilities that is attached to power that women cannot take up. And sometimes I would rather not use the word power, but leadership, because it looks like when you talk of power, men think power is power and power is for men. And again, let me mention something. You know, when we get into these positions, sometimes there's something that is, you know, meant to make women think that men are not supportive of women leadership. Until you get there to appreciate actually the overwhelming support from both men and women who actually mean well to the society.
All right. Thank you very much, Sarah Korere there. Of course, she's staying with us for this break. So is Flora Mutai, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, as well as Zuhura Odhiambo, as we continue this discussion on women and leadership. A quick break, but we'll be back before you know it.
but don't need no intro.
Tangu tuingie kwa mchezo sindo heartbeat. Nairobi City tunairan kama athlete.
If you know, you know.
We have a banger.
Nisho, ni wapi uliniona?
Mix on MTV.
Tutakuletea updates zote about all the trendy and popular entertainment events.
Yes, man. Ini vibe ya kibazu na form iko true.
Bazu, big man, bazu. Bazu. Mi ufanya biz na mabazu. Join me, Ted Agwa, right here on your favorite channel.
Hatuna maneno kukwetu, tunapendana kikwetu.
Mix on MTV.
To get Imani by Rose Muhando and Jemima Macau, dial star 811 star 937 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Unajua sasa naona mawili ambao nawapenda sana na wananipenda sana.
Richard alishakudamu. He asked for a break. Ndio maana alikuwa anataka 2 months break.
So you're the girlfriend, sindio?
Girlfriend.
You know, maybe it's just about time I started thinking about Joy.
You and I are perfect for each other.
Maybe we're gonna point up.
You are going to be a queen, and this world will be your kingdom.
Mapenzi kisirani. Sasa na mwanaume wa kila need.
So una boyfriends wangapi?
4.
4, Jamila.
Hapa ni per person sharing.
Thank you for staying with us on Your World this morning. We are talking about women and leadership. Of course, with me this morning, Honorable Sarah Korere, Honorable Beatrice Elachi, Zuhura Ogada Odhiambo, as well as Flora Mutai, as we pick up from right where we left it. And we've just highlighted the challenges that women on these positions actually face. But there are still the barriers that block other women from coming into these positions. Flora, I'll start with you. I'm sure you found yourself in a board before where you're just with men alone.
Yes, I have, and even currently I am on a board where there is, I think, the only woman director. But I believe, incidentally, when you're a woman alone, do nothing else than lobby for other women to come in.
Yeah.
So I do know in the positions that I've held, I am definitely an advocate for women, because like it was said earlier, if we don't support each other, who will? Who will see the sense? Because you tell them, listen, what do you fear? Mm-hmm. The other thing I do also is just to ensure that if they ask me to sit on a board where I can't, I make sure that I do. So these are other areas that we really need to address, where we start challenging the gender bias, start making people more aware. Corporates should also spend a little bit of time training the men about these gender biases. But the most important thing is really the tone at the top. If the tone at the top is not correct, that gender parity is important, you're never going to go anywhere. So that is, again, a place where chairs and company owners, presidents need to continue to champion. Okay. But the biggest champion is going to be ourselves.
All right. Zuhura, there's definitely a lot of women out there who look at you in these leadership positions, and Flora. But there's also the challenge of that we mentioned earlier on, the insults, the what. So every time you rise, they think you are someone else's puppet, someone else's concubine or something. And there are those girls who are genuinely looking to get into these positions, but they don't know how to progress, to align themselves to be able to be in these positions. Just briefly.
Of course, there's always say around, and any woman leader who's looked into, first, before, as you said, we are ready to, handle the expectations and higher expectations.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's always like, I don't think she just got it like that. And that's why we're saying these women are there. These women, we have them. Ask me today, I'll give you 50 right now. What I mean by that is we know where people say, even men say, I mean, when men leaders and CEOs and chairmen that sometimes I deal with and say, where are they? You know, and we're telling them we have them. We've been equipping women. There are a lot of board trainings that have been happening. You know, whether it's with women on boards, whether it's a 30%.
I've actually seen excuses of, you know, we really tried. We really wanted to factor the gender issue, but we didn't find a competent woman.
Yes, and that happens. But we are saying that they are there. And also we are telling the women, stand out, talk about what you want to get. Talk about, if you do not tell me you have an interest to sit on this particular board, or this is what you qualify and you think you'd bring this on the table, I will not know. And if you also do not have other people, and I'm using the right part of the sponsorship and not the sponsorship, the Kenyan connotation, where do you have a sponsor? Do you have a mentor? I mean, there's a lot that happens on the leadership journey that is not, do you have a coach? Are you ready? And even as you're getting on, are you sure that's the board you want to sit in? Because it's not just saying yes, but it's more about what are you bringing on the table so that you can be able to leave an impact and be able to encourage others. So again, that is more, and are you networking? I mean, who knows about what you're doing? So a lot of women tell you, nobody calls you. Who will know what you could do? So again, we're encouraging that, but we've seen also a lot of male champions who have actually stood, and they've been able to put in names and the other for women that they know can deliver, and it's never been a letdown. And we are happy about that. And even as I stated, the 30%, we have CEOs and chairmen who have taken that initiative to be able to, I mean, look at the likes of the different organizations, even like the Standard Chartered Bank, you know, being able to come in and, you know, drum what they have to do. And we've seen the women leadership, whether it's the likes of Safari, EABL, that has been known well from the maternity allowance for the men to take paternity leave. And, you know, you've seen how many women are in which particular EXCO positions and board even. So we are saying there are men who are championing this. Women are there. We're asking the women, come out, state what you want to do. And also at the same time, we'll equip you with whatever necessary information that you need to be able to equip yourself for better leadership with an impact.
Okay, and Honorable Korere, there's definitely a young girl who is inspired by your story. I mean, coming from a pastoralist community like Kipian North to becoming an MP and coming back again. It's very important, but they ask themselves, will I make it? Will I succeed? There's the fear of not succeeding. Just talk to us about the barriers that are there right now, the barriers that they should expect as they prepare themselves to go into the trenches in 2022.
Well, you know, Kiprop, in this time and era, it's very wrong to even think, which is actually happening, that there are constituencies in this country where there are no schools infrastructure for these young girls to come up. And you now want to think like long term, because if I did not become a beneficiary of an education system, I wouldn't be sitting here in this conversation today.
And that education system, there's still a problem of whether girls should actually go beyond high school. Should girls actually go to school?
That is
so
it.
It's really, we're really far behind.
We are really far behind. So number one, it's actually to champion, you know, those things that we know will enable these girls to come up from there. And to me, key among them is providing an education system for them that will benefit the girl child. For example, even simple things like low-cost boardings, you know, much as the government is talking about day school, secondary schools, for an area that is prone by insecurity incidences, it is actually very unlikely for a girl in day school to actually make it into a tertiary institution or the university for that matter. Secondly, it's very important to also identify those men who are champions for women's rights and women leadership, and they're there. Even in that very patriarchal society, the very local Maasai men, they're there. So that we also don't sell this story like it is women who want to be this or women who want to be that. Because once we are in partnership with the men, and remember these men are the fathers to daughters, they are husband to these women. So once we are in partnership, then you are sure this man who has never been to school, who is a very patriarchal fellow in the society, but who loves his daughter so dearly. Once he's a partner in this, then you are giving that young daughter an opportunity to come up.
Okay. Honorable Lachi, even as we discuss bringing men on board, there's also the role that can be played by women who are already in these positions. The Honorable Beatrice Elachi, the Honorable Sarah Korere, Zuhura right here, and Flora, to make sure that they hold the hands of those young women who are trying to get into these positions.
I think, yes, I will agree. Mentorship is very critical. And in that mentorship is how one also comes out. Sometimes I always challenge young people that you cannot tell me you want to be mentored, but you are at home. Mm-hmm. That you're not trying your best to come out and volunteer. Because all of us, if we start saying our stories, we volunteered at one point, maybe for 1 year, and then slowly you got into something small, you got into a programs officer, you moved. Mm-hmm. But if you want to stay at home, and I know I'm talking to my millennium young people who, you know them, they believe it has to come like this and it is mine, you know. In fighting for leadership and decision making, you must have that drive that tells you you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it to open a path for many others to come and pass. And therefore, mentorship, I know, is very critical. And it is for us to embrace that mentorship without fearing. You see, the other thing is people now feel you fear. If I mentor this young person, maybe we don't need to fear, because everyone has space on what they want to do. And for me, if it is mentoring young people to get into the political positions, it is important. And you mentor by telling them you are not just, you're engaging into an environment that is going to be very, very interesting. Because you become a leader, and maybe you're young, you've not even had a child, you know, but we have given you a responsibility and you have to take it and take care of the young, the old, and everyone in bracket without saying that now I am young. And that is one thing. I'll give you an example when we were doing following up and just talking and encouraging women to just put their applications in IEBC. But I kept on mentoring young people and telling them, one thing I fear about IEBC, it can destroy your career also. So when you go in, you have to think of what are the consequences that I take as I move. But that does not mean you don't need to apply, because we need to break the barrier and have young people become commissioners. The other thing I just want to talk about, I listened to our gentleman from CIA. And you know, it's very sad when you come out and you say women are not able to balance responsibility. He used power, but I'll say responsibility and service when you're dealing service at another level. He forgot that leadership starts in his house, if he has a wife. Today, women are the ones who are taking the burden of families. In fact, if we do not have women who are strong, I don't know where the country would be today. So these are some of the things, and I always say women's participation in electoral position is not in vacuum. You have to know there are effects that will come with it. And so if we don't also do it, the country now, again, in terms of development, you are leaving one gender, and that is why our development agenda is not moving to the right direction.
Thank you, Honorable
So we are not saying that you become a woman leader, you forget your responsibility as a mother. That is where the misconception now comes in. Kiprop, we have to advise and tell our men that one, respect will always be there in terms of family. This is a job a woman is going to do. Now, don't define her with her job. The same way I can never define you with your job. When you come home, you're a father, and you have to be responsible and be there for the children. That is the time you know I need to retain that family unity.
Okay.
And so we can always have to appreciate that the same way men balance is the same way. A woman is going for a job, go do her job the right way, come back home and be a mother of all.
Okay.
And in fact, take care of the external and of everyone, not like the man.
Thank you, Honorable Elachi. And briefly, I need to take some quick feedback before, of course, I get your closing remarks. But as we do that, Flora, briefly before we close this conversation, there's also the girls who, and I think Honorable Elachi has mentioned the issue of fear. So you have self-doubt. So you think, oh, I'm going to go into this thing, and if I fail, by the way, it's going to be a huge mess, at least on my face. And you start to destroy yourself internally. Flora, please unmute. I think we can't hear you.
I'm saying, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm saying definitely, and this is what I call a self-created barrier by us or by society. But to the girl child, what I say is, do learn to speak up. Do learn to get your voice heard. Don't worry about the noise. Like I said, it will always distract you. So do what you can. Get others to champion for you. So if, let's say, I want to go into politics, I will come to the honorable ladies here and say, you've done it before. Can you do it for me? Don't fear getting that. Always be learning. And just remember, nobody owes you a living. It is you to do it for yourself.
All right.
However, for the women who have sort of made it, what is our responsibility? Coaching, mentoring, and basically building networks that these women can plug into. So when I want to stand for something, I can come and be coached and mentored, and building networks, attaching men champions to them.
Okay.
So we also have a responsibility to sort of sleep up, like you heard Beatrice Elachi mention.
Okay. What a wonderful discussion we're having about women and leadership with my guests this morning. But, of course, the time will never be enough. This conversation has to go on offline. But for now, I just want to take a quick roundup of your closing remarks, ladies, on how we can take this agenda forward. And I'll start with you, Honorable Elachi, in just 1 minute.
Thank you. I think for me, going forward is first to appreciate Kiprop that this is a program that supports us to just come out and continue doing that capacity building or using the platform to tell women that indeed women are able to get into any position in this country.
Okay.
It is how we change, how we look at the attitudes, how we look at the values, and how we now conceptualize and ensure that we have a roadmap and a framework. A framework we were given in the Constitution, but yes, Parliament has denied that framework. But now it is for us to create a framework that takes us to the elections of 2022, knowing very well that indeed, where the country is, it is hurting. Where the country is, it needs change of how we look at things. Yeah. And I believe women in this country can bring that change to push us to the next level.
Thank you.
Post-COVID recovery.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Elachi. And Flora, in just 30 seconds, your closing remarks.
I think I'd just like to remind women that on a personal level, it's your responsibility. Society, it is also our responsibility together. There are many things I've mentioned that society needs to do. One of the most painful one, of course, is fighting things like gender-based role modeling, coaching. Within the organization, we need to make gender diversity a top board priority to ensure that it happens. Of course, within politics, we have the politicians who need to ensure that this happens. I want to remind people that it is not a favor you're doing us. It is just giving us an enabling environment where we will come and show you what we're made of.
Okay.
Asante.
Thank you very much, Flora. And Zuhura, your parting shot.
Yes, just to say that we are happy about the journey that has started. We are encouraging more and more women to sit in decision-making positions. We're encouraging more men to be able to own that and be able to look at it that it's not about gender, but it's about business. we're also encouraging a lot of them to stand up and be able to see that they are needed to be able to turn this around, and even celebrating those that have actually been able to do it and organizations that have been able to do it. We are also encouraging them to be able to just ensure we are changing the narrative from the responsibility they're taking in place, both male and female, for that agenda.
Thank you very much. And Honorable Korere, please close the conversation for us.
Well, as I close, I also want to say at this juncture, we are very happy. And especially with Mother Kome on the top there, we are very happy because, one, Mother Kome really merits. She's not just there because she's a woman. She's there because she actually showed interest and she came out to apply. Why I'm saying this, because I want to tell women, the first person to determine your destiny is you. If she didn't apply for that job, nobody will have, realized that this Mother Kome there, who is very competent to be the president of the Supreme Court. And number two, I also celebrate the achievement of women. Probably in this era, it's because we have a leadership that is young enough to, to jungle these kind of things. Having a woman as a minister for defense is not a mean achievement. Having a woman as a cabinet secretary for foreign affairs, these are some of the ministries that were thought to be powerful. Power in the sense of what some people would think power is. So to me, I would want to thank those women who have actually stood up to be counted, and I want to challenge those who have the potential to come out, to present themselves for elective positions, for appointive positions, and to identify a role model whom you'll count up to. I must say at this juncture, when I started politics, Charity Ngilu was my role model, and she has done a lot to hold my hand in the journey of politics.
Beautiful. I think the biggest takeaway from me from what Honorable Korere says is you miss all the shots you don't take. And let's just, before we close this briefly, if we can get what some of you have been telling us on social media briefly. The question we asked you is what we need to do, of course, to increase the participation of women in leadership, that is to see more women in leadership positions. Nyak says more appointments in non-legislative organizations, fair ground for women during political parties nomination. Thank you, Nyaks. Alfie says, thumbs up for you, my sister, that is Beatrice Elachi. Leadership positions should never be about gender or age, qualification and merit. That's enough. Ever observed that female guards, in brackets watch women, are never assigned night shifts? How comes no one says nothing about that? That is Alfie. Thank you, Alfie, for your feedback. Githaga says, you educate a man, you educate a man. You educate a woman, you educate a generation. Thank you, Githaga. Brigham Young, kudos for the great insights from MP Honorable Sarah Korere. I think those are your electorates. And Teddy says, congratulations to Zuhura in spearheading the women in leadership empowerment for societal change. We need inclusion of women in key decision-making positions. Thank you very much, Teddy. And I think that wraps up the overall point and message for this entire conversation. We need to see more women in more important leadership positions. And we have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation for the last 2 hours. Of course, many thanks to my guest this morning, Honorable Sarah Korere, Member of Parliament Laikipia North, and of course, Zuhura Odhiambo. She is the CEO of New Revenue Solutions Africa, as well as Flora Mutai, who is the chairperson of Kenya Private Sector Association, KEPSA, as well as Honorable Beatrice Elachi. She's the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service and Gender. And many thanks to you, our viewer, those of you who have sent the text messages, those of you who have tweeted and posted on social media, and those who have called in. From me and the entire team, it's goodbye for now.